Well, hello. My name is Natalie. I'm a guide in Moscow, and usually I work with ordinary people, I mean with real people. They are usually next to me. Today it's gonna be a small tour in the city center, but not with real people next to me. It would be the city tour for you. For you, it can be different people. Maybe some of you, those you who'd like to come to Moscow but haven't been here yet, or you who have been here already but maybe didn't have his or her city tour for some reason. It's also possible. Or those of you who, for example, have been to Moscow but haven't been to Red Square. It's also quite possible because Red Square is quite often closed. Hope today it's not. You know, most of my tourists who come here from different parts of the world, they usually tell me that most of their friends and relatives, they tell them, "Are you going where? Are you going to Russia? To Moscow? Really? Why?" Because you know, there are some stereotypes about all the countries, about Russia, about Moscow, about Australia, kangaroos, Brazilian, every country has stereotypes. Traveling, it broke stereotypes. That's what I love in traveling, because how it works. Anyway, so I don't plan anything. It's not going to be a proper city tour. It's not going to be like look to the left, to the right, and I do it. Well, it's going to be a little bit, because here, for example, that's my university, Russian State University for the Humanities, and the first book was printed here. We are now at Nikolskaya Street. It's the street which goes straight from Red Square in the direction of Lubyanka Square. It's over there, and I'm walking in the direction of Red Square, and you're walking in the direction of Red Square also. So it's not going to be a proper tour, as I told you. It's gonna be, I don't have any, so I didn't get prepared to that. Maybe I'll make some mistakes. Not maybe, for sure I will. It's just me. I'm all about mistakes. Well, also it's the video for all those who who'd like to come to Moscow but can't for some reason, or maybe a bit afraid of, or not afraid. It's just feel not very confident about all those bears playing balalaikas and all those people who drink vodka on the street, on all the streets of Moscow, or maybe in national costumes. Okay, or KGB officers everywhere, or some policemen, or something else. I don't know. There are a lot of stereotypes about Russia and Moscow. Well, and of course, beautiful girls. I hope we'll see some. So there are really a lot of beautiful things to see in Moscow. So today we are not going to have a huge tour in Moscow. We'll just see Red Square and some buildings, constructions nearby. And we can see a little bit of Kremlin walls already. We'll come closer and I'll tell you more about it. And I wanna say sorry for all my mistakes and for maybe if I forget something also, because I don't have any plan, I don't have anything to look at. I just flow as it is. Okay, here we can see the church. It is called the Church of Our Lady of Kazan. It was constructed in the beginning of the 17th century to commemorate the victory over Poland and Swedish dominators. And what is interesting, in 1933 it was reconstructed by a very famous Soviet architect, restorer actually, Piotr Baranovsky. It was 1933. In 1936 they've decided to destroy it. And they have destroyed it, as well as those resurrection gates over there. They've destroyed those gates to make a huge way for military vehicles during those parades on Red Square. Red Square is there. I'll show it to you. Okay, so they've destroyed all those buildings, the church and the gates. Those church and gates, they were reconstructed in Russia already. Okay, we'll come to the center of Red Square. Actually, I'm walking on Red Square already. Okay, I'll turn around. It can't really be seen very well, but still, that's walls of the Kremlin and that State History Museum. We'll come closer to the city, to the center of the square, and I'll tell you more about all those buildings. It's really interesting because when we travel to different places, and I'm a traveler, you know, crazy traveler, passion traveler. I can't live without traveling. It's the best one of the best things on the earth. So when you travel and you find some new places, it's cool that, you know, usually you see it with a fresh eye, and you can really, you know, be impressed of what you see, and you know, that's really cool. I have some problems, but you know, sometimes, for example, now I don't have this problem. When you see those, you know, wonderful buildings and constructions every day, you can't really apprehend them as they are. Like those beautiful buildings, you can't see it as it is. Okay. So behind me, I'm standing almost on the center of Red Square. Behind me, that's State History Museum. It was constructed in the end of the 19th century, and it was constructed in so-called neo-Russian style. So it's like the apprehending of Russian style, which was here in the end of the 19th century. The exhibits there, they have a lot of exhibits, and those exhibits, they range from some prehistoric tribes which lived on the territory of Russia till the 19th century. So they really have a lot of interesting things to see. So I told you a few words about State History Museum. I'll tell you a few words about this huge building over there. That's GUM Shopping Center, or GUM Shopping Center, as usually tourists call this building. Unfortunately, it's you know, a bit behind the scene. They are constructing the scene because it's going to be a concert here. They do it quite often. Sometimes tourists come here and Red Square is closed. Okay, let's come back to this building. That's GUM Shopping Center. It was constructed again as well as State History Museum. This one was also constructed in the end of the 19th century, and it was initially constructed as trading rows. Those trading rows, they were historically here on Red Square, and in the 15th century, all those, you know, trading rows which took place here in ancient Moscow, they were removed right here because they've cleaned the square almost as it is now. They've taken all the dilapidated buildings, everything, they've taken it here. So this building was constructed at the place of previous trading rows, which took place here in the 15th, in the 16th and 17th century till nowadays. Actually, just they were different buildings. What is interesting, I've read in one book that in the 15th century, it was some diplomat who came here from Holland. He wrote some notes about Moscow at that moment, and he wrote that in the 15th and the 16th century it was a really wonderful marketplace here, and those trading rows, they had, you know, they had really everything here. They had some marketplace in the 15th century. They had everything. They had those rows, and those rows, there was a row with you know, with everything made of wood. There was a row everything made of metal, and they, you know, fur row, some fish row, everything. You know, you could find everything eatable, non-eatable, wearable, you know, everything you wanted you could find in this, you know, trading rows here near Red Square. And what is interesting also, during winter period of time, you know, maybe you've heard about Russian winters, I'm almost sure you have. It's really cold, and in ancient times it was even colder as far as I know, so it was minus huge, minus something. And they were taking ice from Moscow River, it's over there, it's very close to this place, because Kremlin was constructed at the juncture of two rivers. So they were taking those ice, they were cutting ice from Moscow River, and they were polishing this ice, and it was windows in those, you know, trading rows in winter period. So it's really interesting. I think it was very beautiful. Well, at least this, you know, Holland diplomat, he wrote that it was really beautiful. Okay, one more extraordinary building on Red Square is this ziggurat looking like pyramid, looking like building. That's Lenin's tomb. When in 1924 Lenin died, his embalmed body was put up here on Red Square, and yeah, some people look at me like I'm crazy. Well, it's normally because, you know, the girl standing with selfie stick in the middle of Red Square saying something to herself. They don't know that I'm saying it to you. So that's Lenin's tomb. Let's come back to that man's body on Red Square. So when he died in 1924, his embalmed body was put up here, but the wooden temporal mausoleum was made for his body. And a lot of people, they came to see his body. And soon it was evident they needed some, you know, permanent place for his body. And this one was constructed. There was a competition of architects. Finally, Alexei Shushev, famous Soviet architect, his project won. Yeah, his project won, and this pyramid building was put up here on Red Square. And you know, you would be surprised, but he's still there. So the dead man's body is there, Lenin's body is there, and you can easily come here and see his body. Some proper days and hours, and it's free. Can you imagine? To see dead man's body is so free, you don't have to pay for it. And awesome, man, it's Lenin's body, wow. So a lot of people really, they come here, and most, you know, a lot of tourists, they usually, they'd like to see his body. I think it's more like, it's freaky, and they just, you know, they'll come home and say, can you imagine in Moscow, in the city center, there is a dead man's body? And we've seen him. So I think that's why people usually come and see. Well, I should tell you, not a lot of Muscovites, they're happy about that fact that Lenin's body is laying here on Red Square. But still, it's like that. He's there, and queues are usually huge. You know, people are queuing to get there, and it can be 1 hour, you know, it can be 2 hours or something, especially in summer period when it's tourist season and there are really a lot of people. Okay, maybe the most important, not maybe, it's for sure the most important construction on Red Square is Kremlin. So we can see those walls of Kremlin of red color, of red brick, the main tower, the Soviet tower. The Kremlin translates like the fortress. So it's not the, you know, government or something like that, it's just the fortress, and it was like that because Moscow and Russia had a lot of dangerous enemies in ancient times. There were a lot of invaders, and of course they had to protect the city. And the first wooden fortress was constructed here on Borovitsky Hill. It's right here. It was constructed here, and it was constructed in the 50s of the 12th century. And they had a lot of different wooden fortresses, because There were some invaders who came here, who burned, destroyed the fortress. They had to reconstruct or rebuild fortress, and each and every other fortress was bigger and more protective as previous one. So the fortress we can see now, famous red brick Kremlin walls, they were constructed in the end of the 15th century. There are more than, well, not more, there are exactly 20 towers in the system of fortification. Each tower has its own name. For example, the tower we've started, that was Nikolskaya Tower, and Nikolskaya Street goes from this Nikolskaya Tower in the direction of Lubyanka Square. The main tower is this one, it's the Savior Tower. Both towers, they are named because of the icons above the gates, because in ancient Russian tradition, birds, where are you? Oh my god. They flew away. Okay, those icons above the gates, that was the tradition. So St. Nicholas icon is above Nikolskaya Tower, and the Savior icon is above the gates of the Savior Tower, of course. Famous Kremlin chimes. They ring every 15 minutes. Boom, 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 boom. So the weather today, it's the end of October. It's the last day of October actually, and they promised it to be something like +4. I don't feel it like plus. I feel it like total minus, but maybe that's my problem because I'm usually very cold, always. I need to move to Jamaica or somewhere, at least at winter periods. Okay, no, it's wonderful, of course. You just have to have some proper clothes if you'd like to come to Moscow in December. It's usually, well, it's also interesting to know that it's usually, it becomes very cold, like minus cold in November approximately, and in winter period it can be, well, mostly it's -10, -15, -5, -7, something like that. Sometimes, not very often, well, that depends on winter and that depends on the season, but usually it's like that. It can be -20, it can be -25. I remember -30, but it's quite rarely, you know, it's not usually like that. Mostly it's -10, but -10 is freaking cold already. Freaking cold. Very cold. So you should really have some space suit or something. So this building with the cupolas and with the flag on the top, that's the building of the Senate. That's the working residence of our president. A few words about the name of Red Square. There are a lot of variants why this square is named Red Square. The most famous version is like that. In ancient Russian language, the word red meant beautiful. They could say red girl meant beautiful girl. And that's why they've started to call Red Square like beautiful square. Although it was a marketplace, but still. Hello! Also, it's quite interesting for all those tourists to, to see the size of Red Square, because usually they suppose it to be like Tiananmen Square in Beijing. But I think that Beijing Square is a bit bigger. Still, it's quite spacious and huge anyway. That's the Savior Tower, the main tower of all those Kremlin towers. Also, there are 20 towers, as I told you, and each tower has its own name, and 5 of towers are topped with stars. Initially, they were not stars; they were double-headed eagles. But double-headed eagle is the symbol of empire. Russian Empire. That's why, of course, the Soviet government, they've replaced those double-headed eagles with stars, and here we can see them, and over here also. So they've replaced them with stars. Initially they were real rubies, and nowadays, well, in the 30s, they've replaced those real rubies with just ruby-colored glass, because those stars, they are latent from the inside 24 hours a day. And real rubies, they were not as bright as ruby color, color glass. That's why they've replaced them with ruby colored glass. Where are those stars, by the way? Where are real rubies? Because the diameter of the star is from 3 to 6 meters. It's huge. a lot of rubies supposed to be somewhere. Okay. And voila, one of the most interesting constructions on Red Square, St. Basil's Cathedral, famous St. Basil's Cathedral, right here. So, St. Basil's Cathedral, the correct name of the cathedral is the Cathedral of the Intercession of the Holy Virgin on the Moat. Initially, the cathedral was constructed to commemorate a victory over Tatar Mongols, and Tatar Mongols, they were dangerous enemies of Russia for more than 3 centuries, from the 13th up till the 16th century. There were a lot of invasions, and finally Ivan the Terrible, Ivan IV, he managed to put an end to this incursion, and to commemorate this victory, he captured the capital of Tatar Mongols, the city of Kazan, and to commemorate the victory, he ordered to construct this cathedral, St. Basil's Cathedral. And the cathedral was constructed, according to the legend, he ordered to blind the architect, so that he won't be able to recreate such a masterpiece elsewhere. There are actually, it's not one cathedral, there are 9 cathedrals, 9 main cathedrals, 1 central pillar and 4 bigger domes looking exactly to the sides of the earth, and 4 smaller domes in between them. Each dome has its own pattern and its own design. Some birds flying here, and they are colored. And it was really, for ancient Muscovites, it was something unbelievable. So when all the Moscow was made of wood, mostly, this building, this St. Basil's Cathedral, it was something wonderful. Why St. Basil's? Because the correct name is the Cathedral of the Intercession of the Holy Virgin on the Moat, because it used to be a moat here near near the Kremlin walls. The St. Basil's Cathedral, it is called like that by Muscovites because approximately at the same period, we are talking about the 16th century, about the middle of the 16th century, there was a man who lived here nearby. His name was Basil, and he behaved himself like a crazy person, although he was not a crazy person. He just wanted people to pay attention to him and to listen to him, because he was saying some proper things. So this man, St. Basil's, he walked naked all year round. Yes. And he also pronounced some crazy things. Ordinary people couldn't afford to say that. And real Muscovites, he lived nearby, he lived quite close to that place. Real ordinary Muscovites of the 16th century, they really respected him. He was not afraid of Ivan the Terrible, and even Ivan the Terrible couldn't do anything with this person. So when he died, he was buried nearby, near this St. Basil's Cathedral. Can we see the cathedral? Oh my god. So he was buried nearby, and all the Muscovites, they started to call the cathedral St. Basil's Cathedral. Yeah. Okay, we'll just maybe just make a turn and see the cathedral from one more side. It's becoming very cold, really. I can't feel my hands already. It's all for you. Okay. There is a monument in front of the cathedral, in front of St. Basil's Cathedral. That's the monument for 2 people who lived in Moscow in the beginning of the 17th century. There was a Swedish and Polish invasion in Russia, in Moscow actually. They were trying to take Moscow, and those people, they organized a volunteer Russian army to put an end to this invasion, and it was successful. So that was the end of the invasion, and the new dynasty was established. It was the Romanovs dynasty, and we were talking about 1613. Okay, that's the sound from Kremlin chimes I was talking about. Red Square is over there, it's behind me already. That's the walls of the Kremlin, the Savior Tower, that's St. Basil's Cathedral here again. I'm standing here. And that's the bridge across the Moskva River. So I told you that Moskva River is really close to that place. And it usually starts to freeze approximately in November. And they start to thaw in March approximately. Well, then Okay, it's becoming freaking cold, very cold, and when it's becoming very cold, I stop. You know, I can't think and I can't talk. That's why we'll try to get inside of the GUM shopping center, and I'll show you the very beautiful roof of the shopping center, and it's gonna be much warmer in there. And most tourists who come here, who are at the age of my parents approximately, the picture they see about Moscow is Lenin's tomb and some leaders of the Soviet Union standing at Lenin's tomb and watching all those parades on Red Square. Nowadays, and one of my tourists, he told me a very funny thing, that all those pictures, they were in black and white. That's why all the Moscow was in black and white for him, and he was quite surprised to see so many colors here in Moscow, and everything is so colorful. The sun is shining, oh my god, it's so cool. It's gonna be warmer here. So we'll get inside of this GUM shopping center. As I told you, it was constructed in the end of the 19th century, but what is interesting, the Red Square is quite big. The architectural dominant of Red Square is the Kremlin, of course, and the St. Basil's Cathedral, which we've seen. It's really big, it's very, oh my god, it's very colorful, and all those domes. It can be really very good seen, but we've seen it. So that's Kremlin and St. Basil's Cathedral, and everything is very bright. So of course they had to construct those trading rows of GUM shopping center. They had to construct it as a background, as a nice background for all those buildings. And I think the architect Pomerantsev, he did it really wonderfully, because that's a building, quite huge building, but it doesn't look huge at all. It's of nice sand color with a lot of small architectural elements, and all those architectural elements, they supposed to show some neo-Russian style, like State History Museum. And the roof was made by a very famous engineer, Shukhov, and the roof is made of glass. It's a glass roof, the same roof in Pushkin Fine Arts Museum, yeah, and in some other museums and in some other buildings. So he was inspired by London railway stations of the 19th century. So they had this glass roof, very beautiful, and the building, it has 3 arches with 3 glass roofs and 3 floors. And it can be really interesting just to get inside and to see the interior of GUM shopping center, because it's really fascinating, it's beautiful. And let's get inside of this GUM shopping center. So we are finally inside of the GUM shopping center. It's much warmer here inside. And the glass roof, so I told you that it looks like a London railway station, and you can see it here, really. And this glass roof is really cool because in Moscow the weather sometimes is not as good as we'd like to, so it can be quite grey and not very sunny. That's why this glass roof is really perfect. And there are always some exhibitions take place here in GUM Shopping Center. For example, this summer it was the exhibition of vintage cars. So it's always different. There are sometimes some exhibitions, some photo exhibitions, some exhibitions dedicated to the Second World War, because, for example, when it was the 9th of May, there was an exhibition dedicated to this period of time, to this period of Russian history. Nowadays, there's some vintage clothes here, and Gucci here. In the middle of GUM Shopping Center, there is a fountain, and they usually say that if you're lost, well, meet near the fountain. All the Russian people, all the Muscovites, they know that they mean the fountain in GUM Shopping Center. So it's beautiful in here. And the light is so good in here that photographers, they quite often come here to take some pictures. For example, once I was photographed, I was just sitting there because I studied here nearby, and I was sitting somewhere there drinking coffee, preparing to my exams, and just a photographer came to me and asked to take some pictures. because the light is really good here. Okay, unfortunately the fountain is hidden by some fabric. I think they'll need some installation, something here. Anyway, I'm standing near this fake maple tree. Here it is. And here it is. So it's the first video about Moscow. I'm thinking about making some more videos about some not as ordinary places as Red Square, but maybe something more interesting. If you watch this video till the end, you're so cool, and I'm so happy. You can't imagine how happy I am if you have watched it till the end. And I hope there would be something helpful, I mean something interesting, or thank you so much for watching. If you have some questions, be free to ask. Thank you. In ancient Russian tradition, birds, where are you? Oh my god. They flew away. Okay, so, oh, one more. Yeah! Bird! One more! Yeah! 3! 3 is the best number. Okay, so, and those gates, they were also reconstructed in the end of the 19th, in the end of the blah blah, in the end of the last century. Okay.